In this episode of the King Kombi YouTube channel, this one RC car from 1982 started a business for me later in life. This is me mate Matthew Brown from Canberra. Him and his brother Shane both got something in 1982 that every kid back then wanted. It was a Tamiya hotshot. And Matthew the other day sent me some video of it. He's still got the car from over 40 years ago. Here it is here. And he's a collector and he's still got it to this day. So that's a car that he built back in 1982. I wanted one super bad, but I never got one. So I was over there when they were building it. Couldn't wait to see him run. His mother works super hard, an amazing mother that lay-byed him, paid the cars off for $375 in 1982. Be a lot of money if you compare it to these days, but this was the car that set the seeds for me to get into RC cars later in life, and now I'll tell you the story. So well before I got into RC cars, I spent most of my childhood running around the country with my dad drag racing, and I'll tell you all about that now with more of it. Rightio, so here's an old article. This is from an old Australian drag race magazine. Did an article on my dad. This is probably 1981. It's an old article on it and stuff with the drag car. There's my dad back in 81. It's myself wearing glasses. Yeah, so he did lots of stuff in his time racing. So drag racing was my father's passion and I loved it too. Some kids don't like what their fathers do, but I actually did love it. And yeah, but unfortunately in 1985, my father was killed in a towing accident, towing the race car back from Victoria. I wasn't with him. It was probably one of the few times. And yeah, and that sort of changed everything in my life. Had to find somewhere else to go and live. He was a single parent. So yeah, we were going to go to Willowbank for the first opening meeting, but I ended up making it there, hitching a ride up there. And that's me in front of the Hombre car, doing the traction compound for him, but I'll go into more history of what happened after that. Rightio, so after I made it to Willowbank, I came back and I had to find somewhere to live. I was not quite 15, so I ended up living at a place out of Canberra called Captain's Flat, an old country town. Great place to ride motorbikes and get up to no good, and that's what I did. Built a lot of fun stuff out there. Here's one of my early buggies I built. So that's a little buggy I built. It had a GPZ 1100 motorcycle engine in it with a Hillman Imp front end. It had 3 wheels, so motorcycle welded in the back, pipes coming out the back, and it was terribly fast and very dangerous. But luckily I survived the thing, and I think it's still out there in the bush somewhere. So yeah, I also then got my license and I got into street cars. My first car was Monaros, so I had a couple of Monaros. That's an Australian muscle car. It looked like a ratty sort of a thing, but yeah, had lots of fun. Got pulled up by the police plenty of times and basically was a bit of a hoon. And yeah, I took it to the Summer Nats, had 2 Monaros actually. I was even lucky enough to get one of them on the magazine cover, which was pretty cool. Yeah, and that's how I got into the street cars, but I wanted to go drag racing, so I wanted to move to Queensland. So I left Canberra and I moved to Queensland when I was about 18, just turning 19. So I moved to Queensland to pursue drag racing. My very, very first drag car, there's me in the shed with it. It was a Hillman Imp that I picked up pretty much from the garbage tip and built of everything. It was where I started to learn welding and fabrication. It did go to Willowbank a few times, and it actually had a 265 Hemi in it. And it ran it up there, I think it ran some 13s, and then I ended up putting a V8 in it, but it was too rough and it was a learning project and I scrapped it. My next car after that was a Tirana, a hatchback Tirana, another Aussie car. So it's a LH hatchback Tirana. And that car I ran for quite a while at Willowbank, and I ran into the 11s, at a 400 Chev in it, out of one of my Monaros that I'd sold. And yeah, that was a lot of fun, and ended up putting a bit of a paint scheme on it like the old man had, and I ran that, but I wanted to go faster and I wanted a drag car. I always wanted to build a V-dub because I wanted to be a bit different. So my very, very first car was the VW Beetle, which started it all, and that was me interested in Beetles. I wanted something different that could attract sponsorship, and a bloke called Ken Lowe, very well-known guy in Australia. Ken Lowe built the chassis for me. I built the body. So he was he's an American guy, very clever, raced in America, and taught me a lot of stuff. And he built the original chassis. And yeah, I raced that for quite a long time in Super Stand. The car did run into the 8 seconds with an injected 400 small block Chevy. Carried the old man's name on there, so it had hard times on the side. It even had the old man painted on one of his oldens on the side of it. But I always wanted to put a supercharger on it, and that was the next thing. So Ken Lowe helped me source a supercharger. I went and got a 454 Chevy, a brand spanking new motor. I bought it at Brisbane at a swap meet. It was a generator motor, 454, with basic cylinder heads on it, and that's basically how I ran it. It had a completely stock unopened bottom end. Basically, the ring gaps were done, so it had a cast iron crankshaft, stock conrods. We put a 1471 supercharger on it because that's all the money I had, and it probably wasn't the right thing to do because it ended up running 8.1 seconds at 170 mile an hour with stock bottom end. Pulled the motor apart and found out it was in drastic need of cracked crankshaft, and luckily it didn't blow up. And I pulled the motor apart, and then I rebuilt it with better components. Rightio, so with everything rebuilt, it was time to go racing again, and the car was quite a handful. It was an experience getting learned to driving because it was short wheelbase, lots of power, but a lot of fun to drive. So there it is there, chucking wheel stands. Just did the usual stuff, took it to car shows and stuff like that, and kept running it. But I had to start to attract some sponsors. So basically, I was out chasing sponsors now. So I ended up picking up a company on the Gold Coast called Lyco Auto Spares in the paint depot. They helped me out. They kept the thing running, but I needed more money to keep the thing running. I ended up getting a magazine sponsorship from Picture Magazine, which is a company in Australia, and that helped me greatly to keep the car running. So I kept running it and ran it for a couple of years, and it was always a bit of a wild car to drive, but lots of fun. It did go quite quick. There it is doing burnouts and stuff. Had a heap of fun with the car. The car finally come to its demise. I was doing a burnout at Willowbank, and yeah, the car got sideways, just about rolled over and ran into the wall. It didn't do a lot of damage, but it was enough for me to say I need a longer car with a lower body height and stuff. So I basically scrapped the car, kept the body to modify it, and built a new chassis, which was lower and so forth. So there it is there. That's the start of the new chassis. So it was a complete new car. This one was chromoly. The other one was mild steel originally that Ken built me. Ken Lowe built me. So this is a whole chromoly car. Now, Picture Magazine had given me a check. So I got busy because I thought I had some money. I got $7,000 sponsorship, and it was time to build a new car. So I used some of the old parts, motor and gearbox, but everything else was new diff housing, new axles, and built the car up. And the car was soon ready to go. I actually built it in 60 days. I did nothing but work 24 hours a day basically to build it. And there it is there. So the body on it was just the old one chopped up and on there, but it was a new chassis. Now, if you look in that picture there, you'll see a Morris Minor. That's the orange car in the background. That car there ended up getting the old chassis. So for a friend of mine called Russell Pavey. So if you look at that picture there, you'll see that orange Morris in the background. It was recycled at a later date. I'll just show you a quick picture of that. I ended up mounting the body on there for him, and he ended up finishing it off and did some chassis work on it. And there it is there, and I'll show you a picture of it here in a sec. When it was racing, he actually put a Hemi in it, and the car ran 6 seconds at over 200 mile an hour, believe it or not. I'll show you that in a sec. So here it is. Here Russell actually ended up making a mould of the back of the body, did it all himself, did a really good job of it. And his mate Dave Coles helped him finish it off, and they got it running, and it was an awesome beast. Anyway, so back to the VW, I ended up making a new mould and repainting the body, and that's how it looked then. So away I went racing the car, and one thing with drag racing, the money never stops adding up. You keep to need money. So Lyco ended up getting sold, so I had to find another sponsor. So I kept running it with the Picture Magazine and Lyco for a short term. There it is there. I ended up getting a couple of runner-ups in the car, and the car was a lot easier to drive and so forth. So I was chasing another sponsor to fill the means because I needed more money to keep the car running, and I ended up having to repaint it once again. And I got some associate sponsorship from Jim Beam, and kept Picture Magazine on and kept running it, and there it is there. That's with the Picture Magazine and Jim Beam. Still had the paint depot on, and the car did quite well. Got some more runner-ups and so forth. Never won a meeting with it, but it did well, and it started to be very reliable. There it is there. And basically, Jim Beam only was a short-term sponsor. They didn't want to go long-term. And Picture Magazine came to end, and the car was soon unsponsored, so I had to go looking for another one to keep it running. So I did run one meeting down in Sydney, painted flat black for a big monster on the front, but it was time to chase a sponsor. So I did manage to get another sponsor. I tried hard and kept pursuing, and I finally got Woodstock Bourbon. So they come on board and took the whole car, which was fantastic. Ended up getting some more sponsorship down the track from Yellowterra, and Paint Depot stayed on with helping me out. So I ran that car all the way from Townsville to Willowbank to Sydney, and the car did really well. I got about 3 runner-ups, did manage to win a meeting with it. Had the bourbon bug painted on the side of it, and it did really well. There it is in the pits down in Sydney. More photos of it and stuff like that. I ended up building a second car, a burnout car, because the sponsorship was getting along really, really well, and everything was going good. So everything was going good, so I thought, and we're doing promotions and all that sort of stuff. I had the second car built for doing burnouts and stuff. There's a transporter, had that done. Woodstock helped me out immensely. Basically, they helped me because I could do a lot for little. So basically, because I could do everything, paint everything, build motors, I didn't cost a lot to sponsor. I was happy enough with that because I just wanted to go drag racing. There it is there with all the sponsors on. Yellowterra came on, Woodstock, De Beer, and everything was going good. At the 2006 Winter Nationals, I finally ran a 6-second pass. I damaged the wheelie bar on the next run and put me out of competition because I damaged the sump, and we ran the second car. This was to be my last race meeting ever with the car. I got a call on the week after that the guy that owned the company had unfortunately sadly passed away in a helicopter crash coming out of New Zealand, and the company was put for sale. I tried to get more sponsors, but the guy I was dealing with was made redundant as well. So basically, I tried very hard to get more sponsors, and I was going further and further into debt because no money to run the cars. 2 race cars, but 0 money. Race cars cost a lot to run, and without sponsors, most race car teams just dissolve. They just can't keep going. And I'd put all my effort in. I was 36 years of age, and I thought, this is going nowhere. So I sold everything up. My factory was put for sale, so I bought it. And this is where my RC career kicked in. It was finally time to find a cheaper hobby, which was RC cars, and make them a business, and that's the next part. We'll get into that now. Rightio, so in 2006, late 2006, my first job was to, when I put my race cars for sale, was to find another business. I was doing car radiators. I've been doing that for years and didn't mind doing it, but it was a greasy, filthy business that's installing radiators in cars and stuff. And it was a change industry too because they brought import radiators into Australia. So on the Gold Coast, every radiator shop was closing down because auto shops were selling them, online was selling them, and everything was changing. And I didn't particularly like working on greasy cars. So I started a little hobby shop in the office of the radiator shop, and slowly it grew fairly quickly, and I put all my effort into that. So myself, my very first RC car I got, even before I started the hobby shop, was one of these EK470s. So that's a nitro monster truck, so it runs on methanol and nitro. It had the biggest motor of any RC car, so it had a 70 motor, which is basically 3/4 of a cubic inch for an RC car. Just a beast of a thing, mechanical nightmare. Everything broke on it, everything was too weak, but it was just so much fun. So you'd run the car, break it, repair it, run the car, break it, repair it. I met quite a few good mates also that had this same truck. It was one beast of a RC car and a heap of fun. But that was my very, very first RC car, and I later on attempted to race it. It was horrible, and I was horrible at driving it and basically getting in everyone's road, but having a good time at the same time. You can see the motor in them there. They're basically just all motor. They're pretty much one of the only nitro RC cars that actually has a piston ring on them. Most of them have tapered balls, but this one had that. So after playing with that, I started to get into buggies and meeting up with guys, and we actually started a track at the back of Gilson. That's on the Gold Coast, at the back of Nerang, and it was a council-funded track, and it opened up. And we had an off-road track there, and they also had an on-road track there. The problem was it only lasted a short 9 months. It was closed due to noise complaints. The residents around there, they didn't do enough research, the council, and it closed down. We then opened another track and started travelling with a group of guys and stuff, and I was sponsoring everyone with an RC car. Great idea, and everyone was having fun, but it didn't make me a lot of money, and the hobby shop basically wasn't making much money because I just was funding everyone. So after that, I had a rep turn up with one of these cars. This is a brand called Traxxas, and they make many RC cars, but this one ended up being what saved the hobby shop. It's called a Traxxas Slash. So this car here is actually, Traxxas now make 120 plus remote control cars in the range. None of them share the same parts, but this one here is their number one seller pretty much in the world. It's a very basic car. It's a brushed electric motor standard, basic servo. If you see one on the bonnet, they're very basic, but they're very robust. They do need a few upgrades in standard form to make them super reliable, but they are the biggest selling remote control car in the world. And for us, our business, it became the mainstay, and it was the car that pretty much did everything for us. The Traxxas Slash, and I'll go into more detail of it here, and basically how we build them and so forth. So we sell them in standard form, which is with a brush motor. The biggest problem these days, lithium batteries are very hard on brushed electric motors. They've been around forever, brushed motors, but the lithium batteries are too good, so they basically melt the motors in them, they do, and that's where you go to a brushless upgrade. I'll show you one here, one of our fully custom built ones. So this is one of our Traxxas Slashes that we've been building here for years. Been building these vehicles for like 16 years. So it's not the only remote control car you can get, but it is one of the best quality things. Very proven design. They got bumper bars on the rear, bumper bars on the front. Pull the body off it. So very simplistic. We put on the best quality Traxxas shocks on the vehicles. So the proper oil-filled suspension, metal geared servos when we build them, 120 amp speed controller. All mounted properly, heavy duty axles. They are plastic, but they take it very good. 4000 kV brushless motor is installed in the vehicle. Everything on it runs like American RPM composites, like all the arms on them are the best you can get. They're made by a company called RPM. You'll never break them, so you can twist the shock towers inside and out. They won't break. Comes with lithium battery. It's all 316 stainless hardware, so all the bolts are 316 all the way through the car. I'll flip the car over. It's all 316 the whole way through the car. Instead of the pins just that hold the lower control arms and screwing into plastic, they have a bolt and a nut all the way through the car. Everything in them is the best you can pretty much do, and they're a proven car. Pulling the battery out for children, super simplistic, one clip, battery holder out, battery out, so very simplistic. They're just a real basic car, very powerful. This car will go towards 50 mile an hour mark on a 7.4 volt battery. So this is the most proven design I came up from. We sold these for years, and we still build them now. It's just the economy's changed things, how many we sell. But I can't sell cheap remote control cars. They've got to be quality. Yeah, and this is the car that we build, the Traxxas Slash. Rightio, so yeah, we've obviously built thousands of these cars. Here's our bench loaded with them. So we use all the good Traxxas parts, all the good aftermarket parts, and if somebody says I don't want all the aftermarket stuff, they just basically can get a stock one off us, a stock Traxxas Slash, and buy all the parts. But Traxxas makes such a broad range of parts and aftermarket parts, we basically put them together. Now this all leads into how we started an RC track here. We had all these cars and people said, I sort of thought, can we go racing them? So we started a little track underneath our shop, and this is how it all started right here. So all these cars you see here are Traxxas Slashes, and pretty much anyone that was on the Gold Coast. I had the shop here, and we also had a shop at Burleigh back then. We'd tell them about the racing, take their phone number and text them if they bought a car, and we just started a text list, and we started stocking tyres and everything they needed, and everyone started racing the cars. And it sort of grew from there really quickly. We started in 2009. By 2010 we were super busy and getting busier all the time. We ended up moving the shop upstairs. We needed more room, and more people were coming. If you're on the Gold Coast in this time, 2009, 2010, 2011, virtually everyone had an RC short course truck. So the Traxxas Slash is basically called a short course truck, and that's what they are, and everyone had their own custom bodies and excuse me, painted them up, and we extended the track and racing began. It was pretty much the Wild West of RC racing, but everyone got into it. Then we got into full drives, which were like different brands. Originally the Traxxas Slash 4x4, then we had brands like Hobeo, Losi, which is another brand, they brought one out, and everyone became a gun racer, and racing grew quickly. We had tons of races here. At one stage we nearly had 45, 55, 60 guys at some meetings racing every Thursday night, because it was late night shopping. The mothers said, if you're going to do racing, the wives said bring them Thursday night. So we had Thursday night racing, and it just became ridiculous. For a year and a half, 2 years, it was just crazy busy. Probably I would say, yeah, 2010, 2011, it was just going absolutely ridiculous. 2012, it was peaking at just crazy numbers. The racing, everyone got better at it. The competition was getting better, and everyone became a better racer. And we had A, B, C, D groups, and it was a real battle for anyone to get into the A main. So the A main is the best races. You start with the D main, then we had bump up finals where you could move guys from, say, the D main to the C main to the B main. So there was always two positions to fill to make it into the A main. This was one teeny little track, but it produced great racing, fierce racing, and everyone was racing for basically for sheep stations. But it was a hell of a lot of fun, and anyone was around that back then, they would have loved it. And yeah, it was great times. We did other racing during all this time. So myself, we got some 1/5 scale cars. These are like nearly a metre long. There's little ebony on top of it. Took them up and raced them at the Australian titles, and we did really well, qualified well and raced well. Here they are on the track. So these are metre long RC cars. We give them a bit of an exhibition run around the track. That's myself and a fellow called Chris. We're running around the track. These are huge cars, and yeah, we did have lots of fun with them. These are the same ones we took up racing. So the little RC track did really well. While all this was going on, there was tons of racing around, and basically one of my customers opened another track, of all things, just down the road from us, and basically 50% of our races they took off there. So like any business, there's always competition, so I said, why not, I'll go race there as well. So I went and raced there. This is the track. This was called GCRC. It opened late 2012. Just one enormous track, huge commitment for the fellow. His name was Martin that opened it up, and it was an amazing track. I absolutely loved going racing there. The competition was fierce. Most of the guys had already raced at my track, so everyone was becoming a really good racer. Fast, we were racing every Tuesday night, plus we had racing at my place every Thursday, and the competition was fierce out there. It was sort of, most of the guys that raced there stayed at that track, and most of the guys that raced at my track stayed at my track. But racing was next level when that took off, and basically RC short course anywhere in Australia, it was on the Gold Coast. You'd never find a busier place. So I continued to race there from 2012, 2013. While all this was going on, I actually bought the factory next door, next to my factory, with the plans of making a bigger track. So I kept racing there up until around the late 2014. I had a great time, won plenty of their meetings, travelled with some of the guys. We ended up travelling down to Mildura to some big events and stuff like that. And yeah, we had a great time. Race went on. I got too busy with my own track, and I had to close the small track and open our new track. So I went into full building mode. Had to get like another 85 tonne of clay on top of the 75 plus I had, and started building the new track. I sifted all the clay, got it all cleaned out, took all the rock and stuff out of it, so that was a major job. sifting all the clay out of it and so forth. But I wanted this to be a nice track. So I looked at RC tracks around the world and in America and stuff like that. It's a very tough business opening an RC track. Basically, with all things going good, you might make an income of somewhere around, with entries, if people race every week, you might make 50 grand a year, 45 grand a year out of entries, plus on sales and parts, but as long as you run it yourself. There's the new track, there's all the guys down to the track, and we got it underway. So the track opened, as I said, in 2014. The track was all sifted clay, so it was very easy to change the layout of the track, so I did many different layouts. Here it is in action, the guys racing on it. It was a lot bigger and a lot wider than the previous small goat track. That's what we called the place. So people said to me when we opened in 2009, 2010, what are you going to call it? And I said, oh, I'll just call it the RC track. And they said, it looks like a goat track. That's how the name came about, so we called it the goat track. We had a proper timing system, everything was in there. Everything was going pretty well. So lots of races. We raced basically every Thursday night, every second Saturday. We eventually changed to Friday nights. We stopped doing the Saturdays because me and my partner Jackie just sort of got worn out. But the racing happened every week. There was no breaks, so we were basically running the track for 10 years straight every week. Met amazing amount of fantastic people there come through. Just heaps and heaps of great people came through the facility. And you got to know a lot of people. That's how I actually met Bruce. I met Bruce down at the goat track. There's the pits in busy times, flat out. And we had a number of amazing kids come through. Here's one of our earliest ones. His name was Jacob, the young fellow on the left. He went on to win an Australian title. Very, very good racer. Not all kids stay in RC racing. Some stay, some go. There's Mitchell. He was another one of our top racers. Young Alex here, if you're into RC racing in Australia, everyone will knows Alex. He done exceptionally well, he did. Won many, many titles and still racing to this day. Very proud of him. Done some awesome results, and yeah, just a fantastic kid. So he started here probably when he was around 11, 12, and went on to win multiple stuff. Just a great racer. Here's another one of them. This is young Jaden. There he is as a young fella. He never really took off and raced on the big scene, but he was super good at our track, and he raced here, I'd say, for a good decade. He did. Grew up here basically. A lot of the kids that came through here were just young kids, and we seen them grow up into much bigger kids. Yeah, so he done really well. There he is there, all grown up. There's some other pictures there. Brucey. There's his son Alex. So Bruce and his son raced here for many, many years. There he is. He was a great racer too. This young fella's Kai Tobin, another fantastic racer that done really well. This fella here, his name was Nathan Ramsey, amazing kid. We remember him when he was young. His dad bought him a car from us, but sad to hear that Nathan's no longer with us, so rest in peace, Nathan. This young fella here, this is TJ Kabiri. Now TJ's an active racer now, and he started at the goat track. TJ's gone on to amazing things and still going now, and you can check him out, TJR Racing, and he's doing awesome stuff, and he's got a great family and dad and mum behind him that help out. These young fellas here, we had so many children come through over the years and race at the go track. So we've just seen kids grow up from young babies to fully grown adults. So yeah, many people came through over the years. Some of the cars that raced here. There's Pistol Pete, we called him. He was an amazing racer. Jackie and Ebony. Jackie, the track would never would have happened without her. Whole heap of kids. We used to do some birthday parties here for the kids, and yeah, young Ashley Franklin, grown up to be a great kid. And there's Dominic, and there's just many others that came through. We had a visit from RC Rorty. That's Ryan Cavalieri, multiple world champion. We're lucky to have him at the place. And yeah, he came over and raced, and it was just amazing to see him there. Me and Bruce, we had plenty of good times racing. More children that came through the place. Just many others. Here's one of our youngest racers, two of our youngest. This is young Lennox, started when he was 4. And young Luke Arthur here, he started when he was 4. So we had kids start very young. Jaden started really young. There's Jared Cook. He He actually came to the track in his mum's belly, I think, but his dad raced and then he started racing. There's Cooper and Scott Horwell, father and son, and many others. Now, one of the things that we eventually had to close the goat track was the fact that in 2022, the Australian interest rate started going up. So most of our customers were with children, the 26 to 38-year-old, and most of those people are locked in mortgages. So for us, the business really suffered. People are just running out of money. We're selling high-end remote control cars, not cheap garbage, and they slowed down. So that what you're seeing here is our nut and bolt shop we put in. We needed something. You have to diversify in the economy, and we ended up closing the goat track just from lack of attendance. So we cleaned the factory out, and we were going to lease the factory, but we needed somewhere for King Kombi's transporter and stuff like that, and we had a change of heart after a couple of months, and we cleaned the factory out, and we thought, well, let's give the drifting a go. A lot of the drifters don't have children and mortgages and stuff like that. They're sort of more single guys, so we had to go in a direction that would suit the business. So we epoxied all the floors, cleaned the place up, and we went into the drifting market. And yeah, that's where the track is now. We've even now, since speaking right now, we've done more modifications. We're changing the track to a more of a street style circuit, and that's the direction we're going in. So if you're into drifting, come and check it out. So we've never were into drifting, we're off-roaders, but we're trying a different form of RC, which is drifting, and we'll see how that all goes right now. Yeah, so if you need nuts and bolts, come and see us too. But that's a story of how I got into RC. Everyone's got their own story, but that's mine, and hope you enjoyed it. Episodes will be out again soon, maybe not next week, but soon, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching, guys.